The heart stops asking to be carried. It no longer wants gentle words, quick reassurance, or emotional relief. What once felt comforting now feels incomplete, almost dishonest. The soul senses that soothing itself is no longer enough, and that continuing to seek ease will only delay something far more important. This is the moment when the heart becomes serious. It no longer negotiates with pain or looks for escape. Instead, it becomes willing to face what is real, even if reality strips away familiar safety. Ibn Arabi speaks of this shift as a quiet crossing, where the heart abandons comfort not because it is strong, but because it is ready. Ready to stop being protected from truth, and ready to receive what cannot be softened. In this reflection, we enter that inner threshold where relief is no longer the goal and truth becomes unavoidable. Lesson 1: Comfort weakens when awareness deepens. At the beginning of the inner journey, comfort feels like a blessing. It feels like mercy because it eases pain, softens fear, and gives the heart a sense of safety. When life becomes difficult, comfort acts like a cushion, helping the soul endure what it does not yet understand. In these early stages, reassurance is necessary. The heart is fragile, and without comfort, it might collapse under confusion or despair. But as awareness slowly deepens, something subtle begins to change. The heart starts to notice that comfort no longer satisfies it the way it once did. Words that used to calm now feel incomplete. Explanations that once brought peace begin to feel shallow. This does not happen suddenly or dramatically. It happens quietly, almost without permission. The heart simply realizes that being soothed is not the same as being transformed. This is an important moment, and many people misunderstand it. They assume something has gone wrong. They think they have lost softness, or that their faith has weakened. In reality, the opposite is happening. Awareness has grown, and with it, the heart's capacity to sense depth. What once felt sufficient now feels limited, not because it was false, but because the heart has outgrown it. Comfort often focuses on making pain bearable, but awareness seeks to understand what pain is revealing. Comfort says, "This will pass, don't worry." Awareness asks, "Why has this come, and what is it shaping within me?" As long as the heart is satisfied with comfort alone, it does not ask deeper questions. When awareness deepens, the heart begins to crave meaning more than relief. This is where resistance to comfort begins, not out of hardness, but out of sincerity. The heart is no longer content with temporary calm if it delays clarity. It senses that being repeatedly soothed can sometimes prevent growth. Just as a child must eventually learn to walk without being carried, the heart must learn to stand without constant reassurance. Many people try to return to comfort at this stage. They search for the same words, the same feelings, the same emotional safety they once had, but it no longer works. The heart feels restless even when comfort is offered. This restlessness is not ingratitude, it is readiness. The heart is being invited to move from dependency to maturity. Awareness exposes the limits of comfort. Comfort can calm the surface, but it cannot reach the root. It can quiet emotion, but it cannot align intention. It can reduce pain, but it cannot reveal the truth. As awareness grows, the heart realizes that it does not want to feel better at any cost. It wants to become real, even if reality is uncomfortable. This is a difficult shift because comfort is familiar. It feels safe. Letting go of it can feel like stepping into uncertainty. The heart worries that without comfort, it will be overwhelmed. But awareness brings a different kind of strength. It does not remove difficulty, but it changes how difficulty is carried. Instead of numbing pain, it teaches the heart to understand it. At this stage, the heart begins to recognize that comfort can sometimes delay necessary confrontation. If pain is immediately softened, its message may never be heard. If confusion is quickly dismissed, insight may never arrive. Awareness invites the heart to stay present with what is uncomfortable long enough for truth to emerge. This does not mean the heart becomes harsh or self-punishing. It does not seek pain for its own sake. It simply stops using comfort as an escape. It becomes selective. It no longer accepts reassurance that avoids reality. It no longer wants explanations that protect it from seeing clearly. As awareness deepens, the heart also begins to sense the difference between emotional ease and spiritual alignment. Emotional ease feels good in the moment, but alignment brings stability over time. Comfort fades quickly, alignment remains. The heart starts choosing what is steady over what is soothing. This choice often feels lonely. Others may not understand why familiar comforts no longer satisfy you. They may offer advice, encouragement, or reassurance, only to find that it no longer reaches you. This can create distance, but that distance is part of the process. The heart is moving inward, where fewer voices can follow. Another important change happens here. The heart becomes more honest with itself. Comfort often allows the heart to avoid difficult truths about attachment, fear, or dependence. Awareness removes that escape. The heart sees itself more clearly, and clarity is rarely comfortable, but it is necessary. This is why the weakening of comfort is not a loss, it is a transition. The heart is being trained to rely less on emotional support and more on inner grounding. It is learning that peace does not come from being constantly reassured, but from being aligned with what is true. The heart begins to value clarity over calm. It would rather face an uncomfortable truth than live inside a gentle illusion. This is not because it enjoys difficulty, but because it has tasted depth, and depth cannot be maintained through comfort alone. The weakening of comfort is a sign that the heart is ready for something stronger. Comfort is like a soft light meant for early steps. Awareness is like dawn, revealing details that were hidden before. The light is brighter, and with brightness comes exposure. But exposure is what allows growth to continue. If you are experiencing this shift, do not rush to correct it. Do not force yourself back into comfort. Allow the heart to move forward naturally. This stage is not about rejecting mercy. It is about recognizing that mercy sometimes comes in the form of truth rather than relief. Comfort weakens because awareness strengthens. And as awareness strengthens, the heart becomes capable of carrying what comfort never could. Lesson 2. The heart becomes willing to lose emotional safety. In the beginning, emotional safety feels essential. The heart wants reassurance that it will not be overwhelmed, abandoned, or broken by what it encounters. It seeks guarantees, clear outcomes, and signs that things will eventually feel better. This need is not weakness. It is part of how the heart learns to trust. Without some sense of safety, faith would feel unbearable, and the soul would struggle to move forward at all. But as the heart matures inwardly, something begins to shift. It slowly realizes that emotional safety, while comforting, can also become a condition it places on belief. The heart may unknowingly say, "I will trust as long as I feel protected," or "I will remain patient as long as reassurance continues." When this happens, faith becomes dependent on comfort rather than rooted in truth. There comes a point when the heart recognizes this dependency. It notices that its connection weakens whenever safety is threatened. Fear rises quickly, anxiety takes control. Doubt enters whenever outcomes feel uncertain. This realization is uncomfortable, but it is also honest. The heart begins to see that it has been holding faith hostage to emotional security. This is where willingness begins to change. The heart does not suddenly become fearless. Instead, it becomes willing. willing to remain present even when guarantees disappear, willing to trust without knowing how things will unfold, willing to stand without constant reassurance. This willingness is quiet, but it is powerful because it marks a movement from conditional faith to sincere faith. Emotional safety often protects the heart from pain, but it also limits how deeply truth can enter. Truth does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it confronts attachment. Sometimes it exposes illusion. Sometimes it asks the heart to let go of control. A heart that insists on safety will resist these moments. A heart that is willing to lose safety can receive them. This willingness does not mean the heart seeks danger or suffering. It does not become reckless or indifferent to its own well-being. Rather, it stops demanding that Allah soften every experience before it agrees to trust. It accepts that clarity may come before comfort and that understanding may arrive without reassurance. Many people struggle here because emotional safety feels like mercy. Losing it feels like being abandoned. But the heart slowly learns that mercy does not always feel soothing. Sometimes mercy appears as exposure, honesty, and removal of emotional supports that the heart has outgrown. What feels like loss is often release. When emotional safety is no longer required, the heart gains a different kind of strength. It becomes less reactive. It does not collapse when fear appears. It does not panic when certainty disappears. Instead, it learns to remain present with uncertainty without rushing to escape it. This presence creates depth. The heart also becomes more sincere in its relationship with Allah. It no longer comes only to be comforted. It comes to be aligned. Supplication changes. The heart stops asking, "Make this feel easier," and begins asking, "Help me remain true within this." This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. Without the demand for safety, the heart becomes more open. It listens more carefully. It observes its own reactions without immediately trying to fix them. It allows discomfort to exist without labeling it as failure. This openness allows insight to enter where reassurance once blocked it. Another important change happens here. Fear loses some of its authority. Fear does not disappear, but it no longer controls decisions. The heart stops making choices based solely on avoiding pain. It begins making choices based on what feels aligned, even if alignment carries risk. This is not courage in the dramatic sense. It is quiet commitment. This willingness also brings humility. The heart accepts that it cannot control outcomes, manage every emotion, or predict every result. It lets go of the illusion that safety can be guaranteed. In doing so, it places trust where it belongs, not in circumstances, but in Allah. Emotional safety often depends on external conditions staying stable. When those conditions change, the heart feels threatened. A heart that no longer depends on safety becomes more stable because it does not rely on circumstances to feel anchored. Its stability comes from inward grounding. This shift can feel unsettling at first. The heart may feel exposed, unsure, or vulnerable. But vulnerability here is not weakness, it is honesty. It is the heart standing without armor, willing to be shaped rather than protected from shaping. Something settles. The heart becomes calmer in uncertainty. It does not rush to conclusions. It does not demand immediate relief. It learns that it can remain connected even when emotions are unsettled. This steadiness is not numbness. It is trust without conditions. Losing the need for emotional safety does not mean the heart becomes cold. It becomes clear. It no longer clings to comfort as proof of faith. It understands that faith can exist even when emotions are unstable, and that truth does not always arrive wrapped in reassurance. This willingness is a sign of maturity. The heart is no longer asking to be protected from reality. It is asking to remain aligned within it. That request opens doors that comfort never could. When the heart no longer demands safety, it becomes capable of receiving truth without resistance. And that is when understanding begins to deepen in ways that cannot be reversed. Lesson 3. Relief is sought by the mind, truth by the soul. Relief is often the first thing the mind reaches for when discomfort appears. The mind wants stability, predictability, and a quick return to balance. When something feels painful or uncertain, the mind immediately looks for explanations, solutions, or distractions that can reduce tension. This is not a flaw, it is how the mind protects itself. It tries to manage life by keeping emotions within a tolerable range. But the soul moves differently. The soul is not concerned with immediate calm, it is concerned with alignment. While the mind asks, "How can this stop hurting?" the soul asks, "What is this revealing?" These two questions point in very different directions. One looks for relief, the other looks for meaning. The mind usually leads. It learns patterns that work. When pain appears, reassurance helps. When confusion rises, explanations soothe. Over time, the heart becomes accustomed to following the mind's demand for comfort. But something changes when inner awareness grows. The heart begins to sense that relief does not last. It notices that the same discomfort keeps returning in different forms. The mind keeps calming symptoms, but the root remains untouched. This is when the soul begins to assert itself more clearly. The heart starts feeling dissatisfied with temporary calm. Even when relief is offered, it feels thin. The mind says, "This should make you feel better," but the heart quietly disagrees. It senses that something deeper is being avoided. The difference between the mind and the soul becomes more visible here. The mind wants control. It wants to manage outcomes and reduce uncertainty. The soul wants truth, even if truth removes control. The soul is willing to face discomfort if it leads to clarity. The mind prefers comfort even if it delays understanding. When the heart stops chasing relief, it is often because the soul has begun to guide it. This shift can feel unsettling. Relief is familiar. Truth is not always gentle. The heart may feel exposed without the mind's constant effort to soften everything. But this exposure is necessary. Truth cannot enter a heart that is always distracted by the need to feel better. Relief works on the surface. It calms emotions, reassures fears, and restores temporary balance. Truth works at the core. It restructures understanding. It changes perspective. It does not always soothe immediately, but it stabilizes deeply. The heart begins to realize that constant relief can actually prevent lasting peace, because it keeps the soul from addressing what truly needs attention. Many people confuse relief with healing. Relief makes pain quieter. Healing transforms how pain is carried. Relief fades. Healing remains. When the soul leads, the heart becomes less interested in quick comfort and more interested in lasting alignment. It wants to understand why certain patterns repeat, why certain attachments persist, and why certain fears continue to return. This is why unease often increases when the soul takes the lead. The mind no longer has permission to immediately fix everything. The heart stays present with discomfort longer than before. This can feel like regression, but it is not. It is depth. The heart is no longer running from questions that matter. The mind often resists this change. It worries that without relief, the heart will collapse. It fears that facing truth without cushioning will be too much. But the soul has a different strength. It does not rush. It does not panic. It trusts that clarity, even when heavy, brings stability. As the soul guides the heart, relief loses its authority. The heart stops asking for explanations that simply calm emotions. It begins asking for insight that changes understanding. supplication shifts quietly. The heart stops saying, "Take this away," and begins saying, "Show me what this is shaping." This shift changes the entire relationship with difficulty. Another important change occurs here. The heart becomes more patient with discomfort. It no longer treats pain as an emergency that must be eliminated immediately. Instead, it listens. Pain becomes a signal rather than a threat. Confusion becomes an invitation rather than a failure. This listening allows truth to surface naturally. The soul's pursuit of truth also simplifies the heart. The mind often complicates things by seeking multiple explanations and reassurances. The soul moves toward clarity by stripping away excess. It asks fewer questions but deeper ones. It becomes less interested in how things appear and more interested in what they mean. When the heart is led by the soul, emotional reactions begin to slow. The heart does not react immediately to discomfort. It observes its own responses. It notices patterns. It becomes curious rather than defensive. This curiosity opens space for insight to emerge without force. This shift also changes how the heart relates to Allah. When the mind leads, the relationship often revolves around relief. Supplication becomes a request for comfort. When the soul leads, the relationship becomes one of alignment. Supplication becomes a request for truth, guidance, and steadiness, even if ease does not arrive immediately. Many people fear that choosing truth over relief will make life harder. In the short term, it can feel heavier, but over time, the opposite happens. The heart becomes more stable because it is no longer dependent on constant reassurance. It can remain present even when emotions fluctuate. This stability is deeper than comfort. Relief depends on conditions improving. Truth remains even when conditions do not change. This is why the soul values truth more. It provides grounding that does not disappear with circumstances. The heart learns that it can remain connected even when life feels unresolved. This does not mean the heart becomes indifferent to relief. Relief still has its place, but it no longer leads, it follows. The heart can accept comfort when it comes, but it does not require it to remain steady. This is a significant change. The heart is no longer ruled by how things feel. As the soul guides the heart, priorities shift. Emotional ease is no longer the main goal. Alignment becomes central. The heart becomes willing to feel discomfort if it leads to clarity. It becomes willing to let confusion exist until understanding arrives naturally. This willingness changes how the heart carries life. It becomes less reactive and more grounded. It does not demand immediate answers. It allows truth to unfold at its own pace. This patience deepens insight and strengthens trust. Relief quiets the moment. Truth reshapes the journey. When the heart stops chasing relief, it opens itself to something far more stable. It begins to receive truth not as an idea, but as an inner orientation that does not easily collapse. Lesson 4. The heart stops asking Allah to soften reality. The heart turns to Allah, asking for difficulty to be eased. This is natural. When pain appears, the first impulse is to seek relief. The heart asks for situations to change, for pressure to lessen, for outcomes to improve. These requests are sincere, and Allah's mercy often meets them, but over time, something subtle changes in the way the heart speaks to Allah. The heart begins to notice that even when reality softens, the same questions return. Different situations bring the same inner struggle. Different challenges awaken the same confusion. Slowly, the heart realizes that what troubles it is not only what is happening, but how it understands what is happening. Relief helps temporarily, but it does not always resolve what lies beneath. This realization quietly reshapes supplication. The heart no longer asks Allah to remove every difficulty. Instead, it begins to ask for clarity. It wants to see what reality is pointing toward. It wants to understand what is being shaped, exposed, or corrected within it. This shift is not dramatic. It does not come with confidence or certainty. It comes with humility. When the heart stops asking Allah to soften reality, it is not because it has lost hope. It is because hope has deepened. The heart begins to trust that reality itself carries wisdom, even when it is uncomfortable. It no longer assumes that difficulty means distance. It becomes open to the idea that difficulty may be part of guidance. This change alters the tone of the heart's relationship with Allah. Supplication becomes less emotional and more attentive. The heart listens more than it speaks. It waits rather than demands. Instead of asking for life to be rearranged, it asks for perception to be refined. This is a profound shift because perception determines how reality is carried. Softened reality can protect the heart, but it can also keep it dependent. When every hardship is removed quickly, the heart does not learn how to remain steady. When every discomfort is eased immediately, the heart does not learn discernment. By allowing reality to remain firm, Allah invites the heart to grow stronger rather than more sheltered. The heart begins to understand that clarity often comes through direct encounter, not avoidance. Truth reveals itself when the heart stays present with what is difficult instead of escaping it. This presence is not passive, it is alert, receptive, and honest. The heart observes its reactions, fears, and attachments without trying to control them. This does not mean the heart stops asking Allah for help. Help simply takes a different form. Instead of asking for removal, the heart asks for steadiness. Instead of asking for escape, it asks for understanding. Instead of asking for comfort, it asks for alignment. These requests require courage because they accept that answers may not feel gentle. As this shift continues, the heart becomes less reactive. It no longer panics when reality does not bend. It becomes curious rather than resistant. This curiosity opens space for insight. The heart begins to see patterns it previously missed. It notices how certain difficulties repeat, how certain attachments persist, and how certain fears shape its responses. Reality, when not softened, acts like a mirror. It reflects what the heart is carrying. When the heart stops asking Allah to blur that mirror, it begins to see itself more clearly. This clarity can be uncomfortable, but it is honest. And honesty is the foundation of real change. Another transformation happens here. The heart stops measuring Allah's closeness by outcomes. It no longer assumes that ease means nearness and difficulty means distance. It learns that Allah's presence is not determined by comfort. This understanding stabilizes faith. The heart remains connected even when circumstances remain unresolved. This also changes patience. Patience is no longer about enduring until things improve. It becomes about remaining attentive while things unfold. The heart stops waiting for a future moment where everything makes sense. It learns to stay present with what is being revealed now. When the heart no longer asks Allah to soften reality, it becomes less controlling. It releases the need to manage how life unfolds. It accepts that some truths cannot be learned through explanation alone. They must live. This acceptance does not remove pain, but it removes resistance, and resistance often adds unnecessary weight. The heart also becomes more sincere in its trust. It stops trusting comfort as a sign of guidance. It starts trusting awareness. It understands that Allah may guide through firmness as much as through gentleness. This trust deepens reliance because it is no longer tied to preference. This shift does not happen all at once. The heart may move back and forth between asking for ease and asking for clarity. This movement is natural. What matters is the direction. Each time the heart chooses understanding over escape, it strengthens its capacity to receive truth. Something settles. The heart feels less urgency to change reality. It feels more responsibility to understand itself. It stops negotiating with difficulty and starts listening to it. This listening reveals layers that comfort never reached. When the heart stops asking Allah to soften reality, it does not become hard. It becomes grounded. It does not lose mercy. It gains depth. It does not reject ease. It simply no longer depends on it. This is a quiet form of surrender. Not surrender to pain, but surrender to truth. The heart accepts that reality is one of the ways Allah speaks. When the heart listens rather than resists, guidance becomes clearer, even if life remains complex. Lesson 5: Pain is no longer an enemy, but a messenger. Pain is usually treated as something to escape. The heart reacts to it quickly, labeling it as a problem, a failure, or a sign that something has gone wrong. Most of the time, pain triggers urgency. The heart wants it gone as soon as possible, even if that means avoiding what it is pointing toward. This reaction is understandable because pain feels threatening and the heart instinctively seeks protection. But when the heart stops chasing comfort and begins receiving truth, its relationship with pain changes. Pain no longer appears only as an interruption. It begins to feel like communication. Instead of asking how to remove it, the heart begins to ask what it is revealing. This shift does not make pain pleasant, but it makes it meaningful, and meaning changes everything. Pain often arrives when something inside the heart is misaligned, attached, or unresolved. It presses on areas that have been ignored. It exposes dependence, fear, or resistance that comfort previously covered. When pain is treated as an enemy, these signals are silenced. When pain is treated as a messenger, these signals become guidance. Listening to pain feels risky. The heart fears that giving pain attention will increase suffering. But avoiding pain does not remove it. It only delays understanding. When the heart stays present with pain, it begins to notice patterns. Certain pains repeat. Certain triggers return. Certain emotional reactions surface again and again. These repetitions are not random. They are invitations to see more clearly. Pain often reveals attachment. It shows where the heart is clinging to outcomes, identities, or expectations that cannot remain stable. When something the heart relies on is threatened or removed, pain appears. Instead of numbing this pain, the heart learns to ask why that attachment held so much weight. This questioning loosens what comfort would have preserved. Pain also exposes fear. Fear of loss, fear of being unseen, fear of uncertainty, fear of change. When pain is softened too quickly, fear remains hidden and powerful. When pain is listened to, fear becomes visible and manageable. The heart realizes that fear loses strength when it is understood rather than avoided. Another truth pain carries is honesty. Comfort can blur reality. Pain sharpens it. Pain strips away excuses, illusions, and denial. It shows the heart what truly matters by revealing what hurts when it is threatened. This clarity is uncomfortable, but it is accurate. When pain is no longer treated as an enemy, resistance decreases. Resistance adds weight to suffering. The heart stops fighting the experience and starts observing it. Observation creates space. In that space, insight can enter. The heart sees that pain does not define it. Pain is something moving through it, not something that is it. This does not mean the heart becomes passive or accepts harm. Listening to pain does not mean remaining in situations that cause damage. It means understanding before acting. It means responding from clarity rather than panic. Pain becomes a guide that informs decisions rather than a force that controls them. As this understanding deepens, the heart becomes less afraid of discomfort. It does not seek pain, but it does not flee it either. It trusts that pain carries information worth receiving. This trust reduces anxiety because the heart no longer feels powerless when discomfort arises. It knows that pain has a purpose beyond suffering. Pain also teaches humility. It reminds the heart of its limits. It reveals where reliance on control has failed. This humility is not weakness, it is realism. It allows the heart to let go of the illusion that life can be managed through avoidance alone. When pain is seen as a messenger, the heart becomes more patient. It does not rush to conclusions. It allows understanding to unfold gradually. Some messages take time to decode. The heart learns to stay present without demanding immediate answers. This patience deepens wisdom. Pain often brings the heart closer to sincerity. It strips away performance. In pain, the heart is honest. It cannot pretend strength it does not have. This honesty opens space for real connection with Allah, not based on appearance, but on truth. Supplication becomes more real. It is no longer shaped by how things should sound, but by how things truly are. Another transformation occurs here. Gratitude becomes quieter, but deeper. The heart begins to appreciate clarity, even when it comes through discomfort. It values understanding more than ease. This gratitude is not about enjoying pain, but about recognizing its role in growth. The heart learns that avoiding pain often keeps it stuck, while listening to pain allows movement. What once felt like an obstacle becomes a passage. Pain stops blocking the path and starts illuminating it. This does not eliminate suffering, but it changes how suffering is carried. The heart becomes less reactive and more grounded. It does not collapse when pain appears. It knows that pain is temporary, but insight gained from it can last. When pain is no longer an enemy, the heart becomes braver. It is willing to face difficult truths. It is willing to let go of what no longer aligns. It is willing to change rather than remain comfortable. This bravery is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply shows in how the heart remains present, attentive, and honest, even when things hurt. This presence allows truth to settle deeply. Pain speaks whether the heart listens or not. When the heart listens, pain fulfills its purpose and loosens its grip. When the heart resists, pain repeats. Understanding shortens the journey. When pain is received as a messenger, the heart gains something comfort could never provide. Clarity that does not disappear when conditions change. This clarity strengthens faith, deepens trust, and stabilizes the soul. Lesson 6. Truth arrives without emotional decoration. The heart often expects truth to arrive gently. It hopes that understanding will come wrapped in reassurance, softened by relief, and accompanied by emotional warmth. This expectation feels natural because the heart associates guidance with comfort. It assumes that if something is truly meant for it, it will feel safe, calming, and affirming. But this assumption quietly limits what the heart is able to receive. Truth does not always arrive in a comforting form. Often, it comes plain, direct, and undressed of emotional support. It does not explain itself gently, and it does not ask whether the heart feels ready. Truth reveals what is real, not what is soothing. When the heart is still attached to comfort, it resists this kind of arrival. It looks for softness, tone, or reassurance before accepting what is being shown. As the heart matures inwardly, this resistance weakens. The heart begins to recognize that emotional decoration can sometimes distort understanding. When truth is softened too much, its weight is reduced. Its message becomes diluted. The heart may feel better, but it does not change. This is why truth often waits until the heart no longer demands to be comforted first. When comfort is no longer the condition, Truth can arrive as it is. It may feel heavy. It may feel confronting. It may remove assumptions the heart has relied on for a long time. This can feel unsettling because emotional support is no longer leading the experience. But something important happens here. The heart stops negotiating with reality. Truth without decoration does not try to persuade the heart. It simply stands. It shows what is present, what is misaligned, and what is no longer sustainable. The heart can either turn away or remain present. A heart that still seeks comfort will turn away. A heart that has released comfort can remain. Remaining with undecorated truth requires steadiness. There is no emotional cushion to fall back on. The heart must carry the weight of what it sees without immediately softening it. This is difficult, but it is also strengthening. The heart learns that it can hold clarity without collapsing. One of the most challenging aspects of this lesson is that truth does not rush to resolve discomfort. It does not promise quick relief. It may even deepen discomfort temporarily by removing illusions. The heart realizes that some of what it believed was keeping it safe was actually keeping it limited. This realization can feel like loss, even though it is release. Truth also removes emotional shortcuts. When comfort leads, the heart often accepts partial understanding just to feel calm. When truth leads, partial understanding is no longer enough. The heart wants coherence. It wants alignment between belief, action, and intention. This desire changes how the heart listens. It becomes more attentive and less reactive. Another change occurs here. The heart stops expecting truth to feel pleasant. It no longer measures guidance by emotional response. Instead, it measures truth by clarity. Does this bring understanding? Does it reveal what was hidden? Does it expose what needs attention? These questions replace the question of comfort. Truth without decoration also brings responsibility. Once something is seen clearly, it cannot be unseen. The heart must respond. This response may involve change, letting go, or restructuring priorities. Comfort often delays responsibility. Truth demands it. This is why truth feels heavier. It carries consequences. The heart also learns that emotional warmth is not proof of correctness. Some of the most comforting ideas are the least true. Some of the most unsettling realizations are the most accurate. When the heart releases its attachment to how truth feels, it becomes capable of deeper discernment. This does not mean the heart becomes cold or unfeeling. It means emotions no longer decide what is accepted. Emotions become information rather than authority. The heart can feel discomfort and still remain open. It can feel fear and still remain attentive. This balance is rare and valuable. Truth arrives quietly. It does not announce itself dramatically. It often appears as a simple realization that cannot be argued away. It settles into the heart and rearranges understanding without noise. This quiet arrival is powerful because it is stable. It does not depend on emotional highs to remain present. As the heart grows accustomed to truth without decoration, it becomes less reactive overall. It does not rush to defend itself. It does not immediately explain away what feels challenging. It pauses. This pause allows insight to deepen rather than fragment. The heart also becomes more honest in its relationship with Allah. It stops asking for truth to be delivered gently. It becomes willing to receive what is needed, not just what is pleasant. This willingness deepens trust because it is no longer based on preference. Truth without decoration teaches the heart endurance. It shows the heart that it can remain steady even when understanding is uncomfortable. This steadiness becomes a foundation. The heart is no longer shaken by every realization. It learns to integrate insight slowly and responsibly. The heart begins to prefer undecorated truth over comforting illusion. It recognizes that illusion, no matter how gentle, eventually collapses. Truth, even when heavy, remains. This preference marks a significant inner shift. When truth arrives without emotional decoration, it may not feel like mercy at first, but as it settles, the heart realizes that this clarity prevents deeper confusion later. It prevents repetition. It prevents self-deception. This prevention is a form of care. The heart does not lose sensitivity here. It gains accuracy. It does not reject emotion. It simply stops letting emotion lead. Truth becomes central, and emotion adjusts around it rather than controlling it. This lesson prepares the heart for something essential, the ability to remain steady without being held emotionally. That steadiness will shape how the heart carries faith, difficulty, and understanding moving forward. Lesson 7. The heart learns to remain without being held. There comes a quiet realization in the heart when it understands that it can remain present without being emotionally carried. For a long time, the heart depends on reassurance, encouragement, and a sense of being supported in order to stay steady. When those supports are present, faith feels easier. When they are absent, faith feels threatened. But something changes when the heart no longer needs to be held in order to remain. The idea of standing without emotional support feels frightening. The heart assumes that without reassurance, it will collapse, lose direction, or drift into confusion. This fear is rooted in habit. The heart has learned to associate stability with being comforted. But as truth replaces comfort, the heart discovers a different kind of steadiness, one that does not rely on emotional reinforcement. Remaining without being held does not mean becoming detached or cold. It means becoming grounded. The heart no longer panics when reassurance is absent. It no longer interprets silence as abandonment. It no longer measures its connection to Allah by how supported it feels emotionally. Instead, it remains anchored by understanding rather than feeling. This anchoring changes how the heart experiences difficulty. When challenges appear, the heart does not immediately look for someone or something to lean on emotionally. It turns inward first. It listens. It observes its own reactions. It allows uncertainty to exist without rushing to escape it. This does not eliminate struggle, but it removes desperation. One of the most important shifts here is that faith becomes less reactive. The heart no longer rises and falls with emotional states. It does not assume closeness when it feels comforted or distance when it feels dry. It understands that emotional experience is not the same as spiritual reality. This understanding brings stability. Remaining without being held also brings honesty. The heart stops pretending strength it does not feel. It also stops exaggerating weakness to receive reassurance. It stands as it is. This honesty simplifies the inner world. The heart no longer performs vulnerability or strength. It simply remains present. This presence allows the heart to trust itself in a new way. Not trust in its control or certainty, but trust in its capacity to remain connected even when things feel unresolved. The heart learns that it does not need constant emotional input to stay aligned. Alignment becomes internal rather than reinforced from outside. Another transformation occurs in how the heart relates to others. When the heart no longer needs to be held, it stops unconsciously demanding support from people. It does not burden relationships with expectations they cannot fulfill. This brings freedom. Connections become lighter, more sincere, and less dependent. The heart gives without needing to receive in return. This does not mean the heart rejects care or closeness. It still appreciates support when it comes, but it no longer depends on it for stability. Support becomes a gift rather than a necessity. This distinction is subtle but powerful. Remaining without being held also changes how the heart experiences solitude. Solitude no longer feels empty or threatening, it feels spacious. The heart does not rush to fill silence with distraction. It can sit quietly without feeling incomplete. This ability deepens awareness and strengthens presence. In this steadiness, the heart becomes more patient. It does not demand immediate clarity or resolution. It trusts that understanding unfolds over time. It can wait without anxiety. This patience is not passive, it is attentive. The heart remains engaged without forcing outcomes. The heart also becomes less dramatic internally. Emotions still arise, but they do not dominate the inner landscape. Fear may appear, but it does not take control. Sadness may come, but it does not define the heart. The heart learns to contain emotion rather than be contained by it. This containment is not suppression, it is capacity. The heart has grown strong enough to hold experience without being overwhelmed. This strength allows truth to remain present even when emotions fluctuate. Faith becomes steadier because it is no longer dependent on how things feel. Remaining without being held also deepens humility. The heart accepts that it does not always need to understand immediately. It does not insist on clarity before continuing. It allows mystery to exist without turning it into fear. This acceptance softens resistance and opens space for insight. The heart's relationship with Allah feels quieter but more stable. There is less asking for emotional reassurance and more resting in awareness. The heart trusts presence rather than sensation. It does not need constant signs to believe it is guided. This steadiness prepares the heart for whatever comes next, whether ease or difficulty, visibility or obscurity. Because the heart no longer depends on being held, it cannot be easily shaken. It remains grounded regardless of conditions. Remaining without being held is not the end of sensitivity, it is the beginning of maturity. The heart still feels deeply, but it is no longer ruled by feeling. It is capable of staying aligned even when emotions are unsettled. This is one of the quietest transformations on the inner path, and one of the most enduring. The heart does not announce it. It simply shows it through consistency, patience, and steadiness. Faith no longer fluctuates wildly. Trust no longer depends on reassurance. Presence becomes natural. When the heart can remain without being held, it is no longer fragile. It is receptive, grounded, and capable of carrying truth without needing to be protected from it. This capacity changes how the heart walks through life. This is not hard. It is strength without tension. It is soft without dependence. It is the heart standing in truth, not because it feels supported, but because it is aligned. And in that alignment, the heart finds a peace that comfort alone could never provide. If you have followed this reflection and felt something settle rather than rise, that is not emptiness. It is grounding. The heart that no longer chases comfort does not become cold, it becomes honest. It stops asking to be protected from truth and starts trusting itself to remain with it. What you are experiencing is not loss, delay, or distance from Allah. It is the quiet strengthening of the inner core, where faith no longer depends on reassurance and clarity no longer needs permission. This kind of heart does not collapse when things feel uncertain, because it is no longer built on feeling alone. Remain patient with this inner shift. Do not rush to replace comfort with noise or depth with distraction. What has begun inside you is meant to stay. And when life moves again, when ease or difficulty returns, this steadiness will remain with you. The heart that no longer wants comfort is not turning away from mercy. It is becoming capable of carrying truth without being broken by it.